I have told you and continue to tell you that whenever you see the white media praising some black person, which they never do, it's probably because that black person has been useful to white supremacy. Now, the black misleadership class has been the mouthpiece of white power in the black community. They're meant to give the illusion of black influence on the policies of the country while making sure that nothing actually changes. They don't mobilize for us. They mobilize for everyone except us. Then, after they fight tooth and nail to get every other group what they want, they come to us and give us the same old lies about how they just can't get anything done. Yeah, not for us they can't. In most cases, they don't even have to go that far. We just blame the Republicans without ever wanting to accept that white power paid some black flunkies to betray us. We have no friends. The Democrats are not our friends. The Republicans are not some alternative friend we can turn to. We have to push our interests for ourselves, as Dr. John Henrik Clarke aptly put it, exercise the essential selfishness of survival. Whenever some clown comes up to you telling you about black-brown alliances or black-yellow alliances or uniting with the feminists or trying to be loyal to the Democrats, that's somebody saying, let's go ahead and do for everyone else except for ourselves. And there's been a lot of that on display today. So Elijah Cummings has died. Well, you'll just have to forgive me if I'm not too choked up about it. Besides, some of you black folks out there who have been reading the riot act over this, forgiveness ought to come second nature to you, but it doesn't because white supremacy pulls your strings. The refusal to accept that black collaborators with white supremacy has been one of, if not our biggest internal flaw, is part of why this whole black oppression scheme's been going on for as long as it has. We must put a name on the black misleaders who have been working against us. We have to tell the black family who they are. We have to make it clear that white supremacy is not going to put some sort of black seal of approval on its bootlicks and on its operatives that they've placed within our community. Now, it should be very easy to do this. It's about 99% of these so-called black leaders who have actually been white supremacy's stealth operatives. The ones on our side who are actually on the side of black empowerment, you can count them on one hand. But since not a damned one of them has ever reached out to us, none of them has ever taken the pledge to tangibles, and as far as I'm concerned, they all must go. Now, some of you fools probably cried buckets when racist Ronald Reagan kicked the bucket. The clowns who were complaining that, oh, Professor Black Truth, aren't you sad that Elijah Cummings has died? Aren't you going to cry some tears? Aren't you going to say how horrible it is and what a sad day it is? You idiots were telling me to show respect for Elijah Cummings. You're the kind of morons who would say, forgive, forgive, whenever the police kill a black person. You have no convictions. You have no principles. You just do what you think will make white power comfortable. And of course, there are going to be a lot of black people boo-hooing and singing the blues and telling all sorts of fairy tales about how Cummings did so much for them. You look at Baltimore. You look at the shape Baltimore's in. That is what Elijah Cummings did. But black people love to lie to themselves, and white supremacy will gladly fortify those lies and encourage you to lie to yourself because people who lie to themselves are completely and thoroughly disempowered. Your dream world will never trump the real world, but black folks love to be lied to. We love to embrace lies because truth requires that we face up to the ugly realities of the world we live in, and too many of us are so lacking in integrity and honor that we're determined to never do that. So black folks like to hide behind lies to try to make themselves feel better about never having taken the hard line for our power. Fighting for your power is hard. Living on your knees is easy. And all of these people out here who are challenging me and demanding that I show respect for Elijah Cummings, well, we can see which one they've chosen to do. They damn sure ain't fighting for their power, and they've got the knee pad at the ready. Elijah Cummings should have been the biggest, loudest voice demanding that a city only a stone's throw away from the nation's capital was being strangled for resources, but he wasn't in Congress to produce for black people. Elijah Cummings was there to make himself as comfortable as possible. He was there to produce for himself. And that meant make himself useful to white power. White power told him to prioritize everyone else and to ignore black people, and that's exactly what he did. Hell, they didn't even have to tell him to ignore black people. He had as much contempt for black folks as the worst Republican. And there was no reason for him to fear ever being voted out of office. White power gave him campaign money, which right off the bat gave him a huge advantage to any would-be challengers. But also, so many black people in Baltimore are so simple-minded that stepping up for their tangibles would never be an option in their minds. You see, it's very difficult to have to organize leadership from among your own ranks. It's far easier to just show up on election day and, well, you choose from whatever slate of flunkies white supremacy puts in front of you. That's much easier to do. And you got the white media telling you, oh, this is the right choice to make. And well, if a white person said it on TV, that means it must be true. All Cummings needed was a few paid off bottom feeders in the hood to sing his praises and to shout down anyone who asked any serious questions about what he ever did for Baltimore. But that's how the scam he was running worked. He would give the simpletons in his district some insincere rhetoric and they would go for it. Now, I don't owe Elijah Cummings anything because he hasn't done anything. Not for black folks, he hasn't. What has he done that I owe him for? What has he done that I should be grateful for? Even the white media can't lie and say that he did anything. Instead, they talk about how he got into spitball fights with Trump and other useless gestures. Oh, he was such an eloquent speaker. Damn the speeches. Damn the hot air. I want to know where the hell the tangibles are, because that's what I look for. And when I look for the tangibles, all I see is nothing. I don't give a dang about your words. Your words mean nothing. Hot air doesn't empower me. Tangibles do, and Elijah Cummings brought no tangibles. The clowns trying to defend his memory, they can't even tell me what I'm supposed to respect about him. They just say you should be respecting him. He was railing against ICE for not creating conditions where illegal immigrants don't have sufficient toiletries, etc. Well, that chump didn't have to go to the border to find people who were deprived of basic necessities. All he had to do was look at his district, which he clearly hasn't looked at, and he would have found all of the deprived people that he could ever hope to speak for. His district has been a second world, quickly declining into the third world dump for decades, and he couldn't be bothered to go on the warpath for them. You look at the way that Elijah Cummings was talking whenever he gave his windblown, empty speeches, you would have thought that he represented Martha's Vineyard, or that he represented Wall Street, or that he represented the Upper West Side of New York or something. You wouldn't have known that he represented one of the poorest and most dangerous cities in the country, because Elijah Cummings went to Congress, and as far as he was concerned, because he was in a higher tax bracket, well, that's what he was going to speak for. He wasn't speaking for the streets. He wasn't speaking for his poor, deprived constituency. He instead was speaking the way the white power wanted him to speak. You don't actually revere that fossil. You clowns who were telling me, oh, you should respect Elijah Cummings. You don't actually revere him. You don't even know anything about him. You're just doing what you think you're supposed to. And you're doing it because you see the white media telling you to, so you obey. We, the black media, powered by the black grassroots, we were the ones who put black economics on the map. That's why I don't respect Elijah Cummings. It wasn't the black misleadership class who have been in Congress for the longest time who put black economic empowerment on the map. We did that. We were the ones who put forward the first real push at forcing the system to bend to our demands. Not Elijah Cummings, not the black misleaders. The only reason, I mean the only freaking reason that anyone is talking about reparations is because the grassroots made it an issue. And no, it wasn't Ta-Nehisi Coates. Thank you very much. We've had these civil rights retreads in positions of authority for decades, and they have nothing to show for all of their years in office. That's why I don't respect Elijah Cummings, and I don't respect any of the other black misleaders. And you can't make the case for why I should respect them. Because I'm looking at the ballot sheet of Black America to see our assets damned few and our liabilities full and overflowing. And I'm looking to see, what did Elijah Cummings do to go ahead and put some hash marks in the assets column? Nothing. He did a lot for himself, didn't do anything for black folks. We are doing the job that the black misleadership class should have been doing. They should have all formed a voting bloc in Congress with one sole purpose: force the U.S. Congress to provide tangibles specifically for black people who came out of American slavery. We should not have been the ones having to organize resistance against Congress to try to break up their little hustle and to throw some monkey wrenches into the gears. We shouldn't be the ones having to try to force Congress to bend to our righteous demands. That's what the Congressional Black Caucus should have been doing. We're doing the job that they were supposed to be doing. That's the entire reason that black people voted for him in the first place. Black people were coming to get our piece of the rock, and we tasked these black politicians with getting it for us, but these turncoats sold their souls to white supremacy long ago. That's the reason why you ain't seeing me out here boohooing and singing the blues for Elijah Cummings. Why should I? In order for me to feel some sort of sorrow at his passing, I would first have had to have something to be grateful to him for, and he didn't do anything that I should be grateful for. And it becomes doubly absurd because that's the entire purpose behind him going to Congress. He's supposed to be doing things to make black folks smile. Instead, all he was doing was patting his pocket, getting a pat on the head from whatever Democrat Speaker of the House there was, and getting some campaign donations so he could keep his little government job. We should never have had to be the ones pushing for tangibles. That's what we have black elected representatives for, and they know full well what we require. They have no problem saying it whenever they're trying to sucker us into voting for them one more time, but as soon as they get past election day, they go back to Congress and it's the same old song. The black misleadership class has been part of the enemy within. And those of you out there who are running interference for them, trying to be their mouthpieces, trying to kick up noise on their behalf, you've been part of the problem too. Well, we are taking an uncompromising view of our power. And we're also taking an uncompromising view of those who have stood in the way of our power. Oh, and the morons who say, you just want people to vote for Trump, you guys are freaking white supremacist sock puppets. And many of you who have been doing that aren't even black. You think we don't know that? You think we don't know we got some white Democrat liberal shill who is out here desperate to keep their job, so they're coming along and saying, you just want people to vote for Trump. Trump has refused to pledge tangibles to us, so he's not going to get my vote any more than Elijah Cummings ever would have. But I'll tell you right now, if Donald Trump ever gets his mind right, which of course is never going to happen, but we must be blunt about this. If the day ever comes when Donald Trump actually holds a press conference and he pledges publicly that he's going to support reparations and that he will not sign another federal budget until there's billions earmarked specifically for foundational blacks, I would vote for Donald Trump in a heartbeat if he did that. Now, of course, we know in reality he's never going to, but this is the political truth that we're going to have to start embracing. I don't give a damn who the hell it is who brings my tangibles, so long as they get brought. But since nobody's bringing the tangibles, none of these bastards are getting my support. But it's not the Republicans who we have to rip black people's hands away from the ballot for, it's the Democrats, so that's what we're doing. Nobody gets our support until you bring those tangibles. Now, this is a new reality for a lot of black folks to embrace, and for the white liberals and black flunkies who have been eating off of our voter loyalty, which has been completely and thoroughly misplaced. This is going to be a new reality for them because we've just been guaranteed, as surely as night follows day, they can just be guaranteed that black vote. So at the very least, they know, hey, there's like 20% of the vote for the Democrats that we know is on lock, so we ain't even got to work for it. And here we are saying, no, you're going to have to work for it. And they're like, oh, no, we'll be damned if we do. Well, I agree with the first part, you will be damned. Because I've been on a mission for over a decade now. The new voices of black media are getting black folks' minds right. Elections are a business transaction, and it is only a single business transaction, by the way. Now, I know that some of you lead paint eating bastard babies out there can't understand that reality. Your mamas were hood rats. And mama's loyal to the county clerk, or your mama's loyal to whatever social worker is out there because she's dependent on Uncle Sam for every crumb of her daily bread. So she's teaching you to be loyal to white power because she's been reduced to that. But I'm going to drag you into black empowerment kicking and screaming, but you're going whether you want to or not. I don't give any politician or any political party my loyalty because that's not what elections are about. It ain't about loyalty. I did an entire video essay about that over a decade ago. We're all Detroiters now. Black people think that it's cute to be simple-minded. We think that this endears us to white supremacy, to act like a loyal hound dog for them, but all it gets you is treated like a stray dog. Get it through your head. Especially you trolls. My wallet is where I exercise my loyalty. When it comes to economics, that's where loyalty is supposed to be shown. Economics are about loyalty. Only the pure of heart can get into my wallet. And I'm loyal as hell to those who I know that it's in my interest to be loyal to, where the economics are concerned. That's where the loyalty is supposed to be. My ballot, on the other hand, is a whorehouse. My ballot has no loyalty. Have cash, will travel. And just like a whorehouse, you don't get to tell me about what you paid last time. So that means you got to show me what you're going to do to get my vote today. It's today that counts. But I paid for your vote last time. Yeah, and if you want to get my vote this time, you got to pay for it too. Every time you show up, don't come up to me telling me about what you did last time. What have you done for me today? You have to earn my vote, and then you have to keep re-earning it every election cycle. Oh, well, I did right by you 2 elections ago. Yeah, what that means is you owe me for a few. That's what it means. It doesn't mean that you only owe me once. It means you got a lot of stuff to make up for. You have to pay your dues. Every time you come up to me for my vote, that's the rent that you have to pay. You don't get to buy my vote. You only get to rent it. And then you must keep renting it next time. Because the first time that you skip a payment, you don't get my vote. It's as simple as that. That's how you're supposed to be seeing the election. You don't sit there and get jolly in the behind and all of a sudden, I'm going to be loyal to so-and-so because he brought some tangibles, yeah, one time. But then again, black folks are loyal to clowns who have never brought us tangibles. Bringing us tangibles one time would be a freaking revolution. It would be an unprecedented act. But not for me, it ain't. If all you did was bring me tangibles one time, I'm going to be looking up next time you come sniffing around for my vote and going, I'm looking at my hand. I got my hand out and it's still empty. You ain't brought me nothing. So that's what you're going to get on election day. That's what black folks need to think like. If this person brings you tangibles one time, great. And I will be looking to see what you're going to bring me next time. Because the system and those who operate it will take you completely for granted if you let them. And there's plenty of idiots right now on display trying to tell you, yeah, you should let them take you for granted. Let them play you for a fool. If you refuse to earn my vote, if you refuse to buy my vote this time around, then I'll drop your behind and find someone else who will. I absolutely require my share of the nation's resources every election cycle, not just the first time that you're trying to get into office. And not just this latest time because you're scared that I'm serious about withdrawing my vote. I require it every time. See, I understand how elections actually work. A politician will gladly ignore you and leave you to die in the street like Elijah Cummings left so many of his constituents to die in the streets, if you let them. The only way to stop that is to make it clear that you oppose them, that you can deny them what they want. And all of you fakers, frauds, phonies, and fools pretending to love Elijah Cummings so much, you ain't fooling nobody. You're just paid operatives, paid mouthpieces repeating what your white paymasters told you to say. I told you about how important it is to identify controlled opposition, and you better learn to know it when you see it. White power is pushing their shills online today to make some noise on this one because in reality, white power is attempting to preserve itself. White power understands that when black empowerment cuts the strings of its puppets, well, the only one left to knock out is going to be the white supremacist puppet master himself. So they need to preserve those puppets because just like a puppet show, the puppeteer uses the puppet to distract you. That's the purpose of the puppet. You're supposed to be amused or otherwise distracted by whatever pathetic tricks that the puppet's putting on. And hopefully you won't pay too much attention to the guy who's got the puppet on strings. It's obvious why some of these fools today, using the talking point that they were given by their white supremacist masters, they're using the only talking point that they got, which is, let's mention Donald Trump. Surely, if we mention Trump, black folks will be repulsed and they'll be, oh, you said that Professor Truth likes Trump. Well, we know that Professor Truth has never supported Trump. He's never spoken well of Trump. But the fact that you even said that, oh, that's going to turn some heads, has it worked so far, stupid? Did it work in 2016? If it was going to work at any time, it would have worked in 2016, don't you think? Oh, but it didn't work in 2016. Didn't work in 2018. And you're still doing the same thing. What's the definition of insanity? Better yet, what's the definition of stupidity? These people are so simple-minded they can only think in the simplest of terms, this or that. Worse than that, they let white supremacy define for them what their choices in life are. The only thing white supremacy is ever going to present you with is a false choice. But if you're pretty stupid, you'll go for that, and you won't even think to try to go outside of the boundaries that white supremacy sets up for you. A lot of you are wannabe political staffers. That's where you get a lot of these chumps who work for She the People or Black Pack or any of these other white supremacist sock puppet organizations. A lot of these clowns think that they're going to find some way to work their way into the political system. It almost never happens for any of them. Though a lot of these people are just a bunch of simple clods who want to seem smart, in the end, you won't wind up working for any political staff, and you'll never convince anybody that you got an IQ higher than your shoe size. So you're going to fail on both counts. The black media is not trying to lead our people to the Republicans or the Democrats or any other political party. We're promoting a totally self-centered politics that puts us first. Both parties attack us. Both parties work against us. But we've allowed one of these parties to brand itself the party of civil rights. And we've had a bunch of black mouthpieces out there trying to reinforce this lie. And we have played along with this fallacy for far too long. It's time to shake up the status quo. It's time to make sure that everybody understands you're not going to be able to take us for granted. And nobody gets our vote without bringing some tangibles. You can be sock puppets if you want, but we're not. Those of us who are black first, we ain't sock puppets for anybody. Having some half-baked idiots on Twitter telling me to vote for a Democrat or else I must be working for Trump, that's not going to faze me and it's not going to fool anyone else. It does, however, confirm for me that what we're doing is working. We're being effective. I'm doing what the black misleadership class and what their stupid mouthpieces online will never do. I'm asking, what did this black politician over here ever do for me? If he can show me what he's done for me consistently, then this is a man who's worthy of my respect. But if the only thing that he can say is, well, I was the first black representative for district, blah, 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 blah. I was the first black congressman for district, blah, blah, blah. That ain't hitting on nothing. The entire purpose behind putting a black politician in office is as a means to an end. Tangibles for black people as a group is the end. But when these fools get in there, as far as they're concerned, hey, I got my equity out of the game. I'm in here and that's all I'm here for. Well, that ain't good enough. The so-called black misleadership have been nothing but flunkies and lackeys for white power. And I said it. White power installed these chumps, no different than the misleaders of African nations. I'm not about to respect that. Respect must be earned. You don't get it because some empty-headed jackass online tells me that I ought to give you respect. That ain't going to get me anything. And the only thing that's going to get you is blocked. And you damn sure don't get my respect because the white media says I should give it. I decide what is worthy of my respect, and that is totally dependent on what they've done to provide tangibles for black people. Tell me something. Is Baltimore a bastion of black empowerment today? Is Baltimore a self-sufficient bulwark of black economic might? Gee, if only Baltimore had someone in Congress who would represent them. Hey, say if Baltimore had some black congressman who was bold enough to do a sit-in on the floor of the House of Representatives for them, and say that as long as my people are deprived of the federal money that they should get, that they are owed as a matter of being citizens, that's what the federal budget represents. It represents government pooling a certain amount of the nation's resources and supposed to be giving it back to the people according to what they need. And instead, what has Baltimore gotten? Baltimore's been the neediest of cities, but you couldn't tell it by the way the federal government's treated them, and you couldn't tell it by how little fuss Elijah Cummings has raised over their deprivation. To hear Elijah Cummings tell it, you would think that he comes from Martha's Vineyard. You would not know that he comes from one of the poorest cities in America. But that's because Elijah Cummings didn't care about that. And neither does the rest of the black misleadership class. Baltimore got nothing from Elijah Cummings, and that didn't bother him at all. Because he knew that there were some idiots out there who would give him a pass. You got some fools online telling me, you're be talking critically of Elijah Cummings, brother. It's too soon for that. It's too soon for that, brother. Let me tell you something stupid. It is never too soon to tell the truth about some self-serving tool of white supremacy. It is never too soon to speak out against those who have worked against our interest. The fact of the matter is we waited too damn long. To hell with that too soon stuff. We waited way too long to speak up. Elijah Cummings has already gotten away with doing all the damage he could do to our people. This man was a tool of white supremacy, and he got away with it. And that doesn't bother some of you, and that's a problem in and of itself. It's too soon. Shut up, fool. It's too late, truth be told. The time to have called Elijah Cummings out was when he was running for office the first time. Instead, we allowed him to make a career out of doing what was in the interest of the left arm of white supremacy, otherwise known as so-called liberals and or Democrats, while black people got nothing from him except a couple of stale Bible verses and the same old recitation about how he marched with Dr. King back in the day and I was beat up by the cops and I ain't standing up to white supremacy for jack. And that's basically what he says to me. When you give me the crap about how I spilled blood in Selma, what you're really telling me is I was a punching bag for white supremacy and I'll be damned if I stand up to them white supremacists. That's what you really said. You're not standing up to white supremacy. That's what you said to me. No, I'm not respecting that. When you make it where I have to do the job that I sent you to do, when you gladly speak up for everyone except for me, we got a word for that, and that word is called treason. You have betrayed your constituency. When you decide to be a tool of white supremacy, don't you dare come to me and tell me it's too soon for me to tell the truth about those who collaborate with the most evil, vile system in human history. No, we let these guys go their entire lives. We let them live lives of wealth and comfort while black people live lives of deprivation and oppression. And no, I am not going to remain silent on that. It is not too soon to tell the truth about the black misleadership class. It is not too soon to speak the truth. And I know white supremacy, they didn't like the little eulogy that I did regarding Toni Morrison, so I'm sure they'll probably try to leap on this one. Family, you better be at the ready on this one. Because that's what white supremacy wants to do. They want to make it where they get to write our page in history. They get to bestow some sort of honor and some sort of merit on those who have been the lapdogs and the mouthpieces of white supremacy. And just like Elijah Cummings, they'll get away with it if we don't push back and push back hard. So you've got to be ready to stand up for and to make sure the white supremacy gets checked whenever they attack any of the new voices of black media. We are not the muscle behind the movement. You are. If you're going to have a voice, that means you got to stick up for that voice. And also, keep in mind, speaking of sticking up for, if you're not following me on Twitter, you should be doing so. You miss a lot of Professor Truth's little pearls of wisdom that get dropped daily if you're not subscribed to me on Twitter. And speaking of missing out, YouTube has gone ahead and done their usual algorithmic nonsense, which is supposed to be burying the new voices of black media, making it where if you are subscribed to me, you want to check and make sure, because YouTube's been unsubscribing people. And you want to make sure that you hit the bell icon whenever you subscribe. If you haven't hit it, make sure that you did so you can get your notifications. But even so, if you're following me on Twitter, you'll know when a new video drops. Don't wait for YouTube to tell you. It's going to be up to us to be proactive on all fronts. Proactive to make sure that we stay engaged with those who are speaking for us. Proactive to make sure that we defend those who are speaking for us. And proactive to make sure that we shun and call out those who have worked against our interest and worked against our power. This is not a game. It's deadly serious. We're fighting a war for our survival. And it's a war that we're losing because we got too many enemy agents among us. So no, I'll be damned if I'm going to remain silent on this one. I got no respect for those who have not brought me my tangibles. I got no respect for those who think that it's cute to speak up for everyone except for me. I am not comfortable with allowing people to spend decades, go their entire life to make a freaking career out of being just negligent of my people. That's what Elijah Cummings did. He made a career. His career was not being a congressman. His career was being a serial offender against black empowerment. He made a career out of ignoring the righteous demands of our people. He made a career out of ignoring us. And he got paid very well for it and was rewarded for it. It's time out for people making careers out of harming us and making careers out of depriving us of our voice and making careers out of depriving us of our tangibles. That's what the Black Misleadership class has done. They make a career out of cutting us off at the knees. Well, it's time to show them that fighting against black empowerment, working against the interests of foundational black Americans, that's a career path that doesn't come with a retirement plan and it doesn't come with honor. And no, it is never too soon to say that.